I've seen a lot of the same videos floating around lately about why finishes don't mean anything anymore, and it usually revolves around the same points, like finishes don't end matches anymore, and it makes those moments when they do kick out feel less exciting, so they aren't really finishes anymore. I don't actually disagree with any of this. Where I do disagree, however, is that this has hurt the product. Wrestling is subjective, like anything else. Good art and bad art are literally the same thing when you boil it down, really. While it would be easy to dismiss these people as people who grew up in a different era of wrestling, who are just in denial about the change in style or format of wrestling, I want to be more fair than that. I get the love for the sanctity of the finisher, but I think it's more of a reflection of the change in the landscape of wrestling than it is a dying technique. I see the wrestling finisher like I do the guitar solo. It was something born out of a need to add flair and excitement to a medium that is just phased out over time. Just like the guitar solo slowly became more of multi-instrumental melodic sections of songs, finishers became signature moves with slightly higher impact than their usual signature moves. And just like the guitar solo was phased out with the rise of electronic music, hip-hop, and now the genre has diversified, the finisher just sort of became more of a higher caliber signature move, really. I don't see this as the death of its format or evidence of a lost art. Both things still exist in ways, they just aren't what they once were. Wrestling, like every form of entertainment, is subject to the same cultural shifts as any other art form. To me, there is no such thing as an era that is better or worse. There are just different eras of different cultural attitudes that reflect an ever-changing taste and outlook within the society this art reflects. Finishers have just outgrown their use is at a period where they were used in wrestling, at a time where they were used to create strong wrestlers and huge match feelings, at a time where the stage aspect may have been less known, it made more sense. Finishers were a way of making someone feel truly great. They had a trump card up their sleeve that could win at any moment, and the storylines could be built around that. But as the spectacle grew and wrestling was more well known to be scripted, the match storylines got wilder. The characters got crazier. The finishers became a fundamentally different storytelling device. Into the 2000s, with indie promotions on the rise and places like Ring of Honor and PWG later, wrestling moved into a very different place. What was originally a high focus on the storyline and structure of a match was now a focus on the athleticism and energy of a match. These matches still had stories and structure, but there was emphasis on what the human body could achieve and the development of what could technically be possible within wrestling sequences. This combined with wrestling crossing over with MMA and amateur wrestling a lot more, finisher has now slowly been naturalized due to the influence of legit combat sports which obviously don't have signature moves and finishes in the same way traditional pro wrestling does. It's become more of a brand for the individual wrestler than it is a finisher anymore. Finisher probably isn't the best word for it anymore. Neither is a guitar solo really, but it's kind of just the best way to describe these moves. In the mid-2010s, we saw an explosion of these styles all over wrestling, and now where promotions have been expected to keep a certain style, we are seeing wrestlers embody a particular style rather than adopting that style of the promotion. This means we get people like the Young Bucks hitting an egregious amount of super kicks in a match, which feels awesome because it keeps the matches super exciting and engaging, like a huge move can come at any second, wrestling people like Kenny Omega and Saya Kamatani, whose respective finishes are well protected, and feel like the opponent is hitting bricks instead of the map when it's hit, and that's also great. You have Will Ospreay, who feels like a walking toy box of signature moves, who can just explode with anything and completely change the pace at a moment's notice, forever keeping his matches feeling fresh and interesting. You have Momo Watanabe, who viciously beats down opponents and makes every single finisher feel like a gunshot. There's so much variety in modern wrestling and I fucking love it. I also feel like the finishers are overused argument is kind of exaggerated a lot of the time. We are finally in a place where dream matches are quickly becoming a thing of the past, with brand crossover. We are seeing luchador legends fight the biggest American brutes. We are seeing technical wizards fight dudes who wrestle like the ring is a trampoline and they binged on Adderall 5 minutes ago. I understand why somebody prefers an older, more standardized style of pro wrestling, and they may feel disillusioned or alienated from the modern product. But old wrestling is still there to watch, both in expanding online libraries, preserving the classics and old school styles today. I do think some could benefit from taking a long break from wrestling because there is burnout in wrestling and it's a whole unique beast that just isn't in other mediums. Even if a long break and a more open mind isn't working, maybe it's just time to admit that the audience wants something that you don't, and that's okay. Things change.